Hey there, welcome to the Intentional Optimist Unconventional Leaders guest speaker series. Today, I am thrilled to have my friend Limor Bergman Gross. Welcome.
Hi, Andrea. So
Hey.
great to be here as well, and second time.
I know. So, for those of you who are listening here or tuning in, if you haven't listened to her podcast episode with me, it's episode 106. It came out the week that this airs as well. And it is entitled Understanding What You Need. And when you listen to the podcast, you'll understand how her story explains figuring out what you need and gives you tips on how to do that. So, today, we're going to let her give us just a little bit of background, but then she's going to tell us what we need in order to level up in our job or in our industry, which, I am really big on entrepreneurship, but I am learning as I, let's say, get enough distance from corporate that my intense visceral emotions based in that particular or against that or towards that particular situation have modified and what's the word I'm looking for? Eased or mellowed. I think that's what I'd like to use. So the thing with Limor though, y'all, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit though, is she has over 20 years in the tech industry with lots of leadership. So this is a woman in a male dominated field. And if anybody can tell us how to do what we need to do, it's Limor. Give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, sure. So I started my career as a software engineer, and let me know if you want you want me to go even backwards. But yeah, started as a software engineer. To be honest, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just started because I was good at STEM related fields in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out, well, computer science kind of makes sense. It's a good profession to have. Good, salaries are nice. So that's kind of how I started. I studied computer science and started my way up. And I didn't really know what I wanted. I wasn't intentional at the beginning about my career. But
Yeah.
what happened was that one day I was actually in North Carolina. I remember that day. I was visiting a client and I got a phone call from my manager. And she said, "Congratulations, Limor. You are now promoted to a staff engineer." And at that company, there were two tracks: management tracks and
Mm.
technical track. Actually, it was not that common back then. And that I was actually not sure if to be happy or what, because it kind of she kind of said to me, "Okay, we decided for you that you're gonna grow in the technical route." And I'm like, I'm not sure actually that's what I want.
Yeah. It's
So
very
that's kind of
different. I
started
mean, it's
me.
very different skills. And one of the things we did talk about on the podcast is how you need to determine in a situation like that, you need to determine, do I want to devote my time to my technical skills? And do I want to become an even more intense programmer and technical person? Or do I want to go into the people skills?
Yeah.
Because they're very different things, right?
Yes. And the first tip I will give you
Okay.
is being intentional and optimist, obviously. Uh, so you need to be intentional about what you want, and open up and open minded, because we have so many skills. And it took me years to realize that I have many skills and I can do many
Mm.
things like I do today. And think about possibilities and what you want Be intentional, because otherwise things will just happen to you
Yeah.
as they happened to me until I decided to take charge and change the course of my career.
Yeah. Um, you know, I love that you're throwing out there a word straight from my business name. But I think that we both share that common idea that when you decide you're going to do something, it actually helps you take the steps to do it. And to me, that's a little bit of what intentional actually means. It means to say, all right, I'm going to actually pick a point on the horizon. I'm going to move in that direction. And if I need to change, that's fine. If I need to change the point on the horizon, that's fine. But I need to take steps towards something rather than just allowing my steps to just kind of meander all over the place. Is that kind of what you're meaning there?
Yes, it basically you need to decide what you want, mark some targets instead of just letting things happen
Mm.
and go with the flow. And life can get you somewhere and also your career, but is it what you want?
So how would you
And
have been a little more intentional? Like you didn't see this coming, right? So, or did you? How would you have been more intentional?
so it took me some time to think about what I want. So it started by identifying what I don't want. And that was
Helpful.
easier.
Yes.
And then many times it's easier just to realize what we don't want.
Yeah.
And I realized that while I was okay as a software engineer, it wasn't my core strength. Like the technical skills were there, but I didn't feel like I was outstanding. I
Yeah.
was okay. But I noticed that what I did do much better is interaction with people, with clients, really anything related to building relationships, communication, and working with different kind of people. Not all of them were easy. I could
Mm.
basically work with anyone, even if I didn't like them, by the way.
God,
Uh,
that is
they
amazing.
they didn't always know that, right? I mean, I was very mature in my attitude, and I was good at
Mm.
that, and I figured, well, if I'm that good working with clients and with people, then I think that my route should not be going deep on the technical skills,
Mm.
but rather going up on the leadership skills.
Mm. That's impressive. I mean, to know how old were you at this time? Do you mind telling?
I think I was at early 30s
Okay.
back then. Yeah.
And you know, you use the word mature in your mindset. And, you know, I see plenty of people. And before I left corporate, I had some people who were older than me and not yet mature in the mindset when it comes to making those kinds of decisions and understanding. Knowing your actual strengths is very important. You looked clearly at, and honestly, I think, and that's something else, right? There's some things that we do well, right?
Yeah.
I actually played volleyball quite well in high school. I was, even though I'm little, I actually played quite well. But it's not really one of my strengths. It's just something I did well. I was a darn good grant administrator. I knew all the rules and regulations. I knew how to make sure that grants got in on time with everything they needed, but it's not one of my strengths. And there's a difference between being in what I guess I'm going to quote it, and I don't know whose it is, but you might know who it is. The difference between your zone of excellence and your zone of genius, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing what you do well and what are your strengths and what some people might call your superpowers. And for you to be able to work in tech, number one, with anyone, meaning your clients and your colleagues, that does shine a big spotlight on people skills.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the first thing I do with clients I work with.
Mm.
We discover their strength.
Okay. Do you use a tool or is it just a way you walk through things?
I what I like to do is do multiple things. First of all, I like them to zoom in and ask themselves some questions, right? What
Mm-hmm.
they feel they're doing very well. And
Mm.
sometimes I ask, thinking about successes you had or things you're especially proud of that you were able to achieve. It doesn't have to be in career, it can be anything,
Mm.
right? In life.
Sure.
And ask yourself, what was there? What did I bring there that made me to succeed that well? So
Mm.
that's one strategy I use.
Okay.
And the other strategy I like to use is just mirroring that to other people around you and
Okay.
asking for feedback. It could be from family and friends, colleagues, ex colleagues, neighbors, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like people are mature enough, I ask mature enough in the ability to actually absorb. I ask them to also ask for constructive feedback. If people are more sensitive, it depends, right? How
Mm-hmm.
people are coming. Some people are coming really, they don't have enough confidence. They're really in a tough spot. So I try not to put too much burden and I
Yeah.
focus on strength.
Yeah.
Anyway, we want to focus on strength. But a lot of
Yeah.
times, as for me, I realized what I was not that superstar. Sometimes you need courage to look also at the things that you're not born to do. Like you can do well, you can do maybe okay, maybe you really bad at this. it helps you, right, to figure out,
It
okay, I'm not
does.
good at this, but I'm good at other things.
Yeah. And, I think we can all, those of us who are 20 years into our career, can look back at what we wanted to do when we were in college and see if that's something that we really do. Like, I was a singer. I'm not a famous singer. You notice, right? Actually, it's a hidden career, right? But I'm not a famous singer, and I do have a voice that I've been gifted with, but it's not the kind of voice, and I don't have the personality that is Carnegie Hall or is international pop star. And I wanted to sing. I enjoyed singing. I got a lot of really positive feedback, but I didn't have the drive to do it. And as I looked back, it took me years to let go of that. And I don't know. I mean, my mother actually said something when I was young that I felt like was very hurtful, but somebody else said, "You need to be recording professionally." And she said, "Don't tell her that. She's not good enough." And I thought, why would a mother say that? And the reality is, she actually said that when nobody else would. I'm good. I can sing really well. It brings other people joy when I do, especially when I sing in church. And, but at the same time, it is not my zone of genius. My zone of genius is in more of an interactive format. But it took me a long time to learn that. It took me a long time to see what I really wanted to do. My son wanted to be, last year, if you had asked him what his career was, it was he was going to be a YouTuber. And because he was in 7th grade and now he's in 8th grade. And so I'm like, hey, babe, this is the age of the digital entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You can be whatever you want. And if you start, I even showed him some guys on TikTok that I follow that teach me how to do some things on TikTok. One of them's literally graduating from high school this year. So he's a senior, he's like 18 and he's a millionaire. But what he did one of his day in the life TikToks. And so I literally was like, here, watch this one, babe. So he went to school and he did his tests and he did all this stuff. Did all these things. And then after he was done with his homework, he met with clients. And I said, this is a professional doing the work that I mean, granted, he's not playing games on YouTube. He's a TikToker. But I said, you want to get your homework done, you want to get all that stuff done, and you want to do this outside, I will help you figure out how to do it. But just seeing that was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not so sure. And now he's taking a music technology course, and he was going to take as elective, it was going to take an IT kind of class where he would learn text structures and coding and that kind of thing. And I think he's decided he would rather have art. And so, but it's giving ourselves, yes, there's a certain amount of playing around with figuring out what's good, but the process that you take your clients through is what I would call like a mini 360 and a mini 360 observation kind of thing, where it can be hard or soft depending on their be able to say, what am I really good at? What am I, if you've got people that are willing to tell you, you're really just not good at this. You need that. And developing the ability to hear that is helpful. But if you haven't tried anything, then you have nothing to look at.
That's true.
Right. So I think the only thing I would add is to try a few things and just see, right. I joke that I tried a couple of entrepreneurial things. And then I thought, well, I just want to be an interior designer. And I got into my first course. I was like, I don't think so. The drafting part was a little too detail oriented. I just want to do the pretty stuff. So anyway, so the first thing they do is you figure out your actual strengths and you look at, where you can actually shine. And then what is kind of the next step that you take people through?
So the next step would be to look at what do they actually like doing. It's not just about what you're very good at. It's also what you enjoy doing. And we all know, right? I mean, we don't enjoy every single thing we do every day, right? Either as entrepreneurs, as business owners, or as employees. We don't enjoy 100%. But we want to be in, as you mentioned, like the genius zone.
Right.
But also the zone where we really enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, why do we have to think that it's hard or that we don't like it, that work has to be not fun, right?
Yeah, there are many reasons. I think that it's part of a lot of times where we grow up, where people have limiting beliefs that job is a place you hate and you have to spend most of your time just in order to make a living. And many of us grew in families that that's the reality, right? That was the
Mm.
reality.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I mean, many people think that the job has to be some place that you suffer, and it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be.
No. I mean, even if it's something you like doing, if the atmosphere is no good, find another one that you like doing.
And usually I like to ask people a question like, what would you do even without any reward? Because a lot of times people, oh, I'm not sure what I even like to do. I said, okay, what
Hmm.
do you do on your free time? What would you do? What do you give back? What would you do? What would
Mm.
people come for your help and you always help happily?
Yeah.
Or what would you do if, as a volunteer, even if no one asked for anything in return? Like I started mentoring, right? In 2017, I didn't really enjoy that. And no one paid me anything. I was willingly
Mm.
and still do it for free.
Right.
So that's another area where people can it can help people discover what are the things that they like to do, even unrelated necessarily just to their day job. Because a lot of time, because we are stuck in a job we hate or
Right.
someplace that is not
Mm.
right for us, it's really hard for us to think what we like.
Yeah. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something about the United States with this Protestant work ethic where everything it's supposed to be toil. And we think that doing something that we enjoy is selfish. When in reality, if we enjoy it, it's possible that we could actually bring so much more good to the world around us.
Yeah.
So do you have people who just can't get there? Do you have clients that just can't, because a lot of times I'll ask people if money were no object, and I've quit asking that question because it throws too many
Yeah,
people.
this is a problematic question because
Yeah.
so oh, I'll just go and do nothing, right? I'll go and travel the world and I'll just sit on the beach and drink something. Because when you are in a place of adversity, when it's hard, when you're challenged, when you're in a place that is not good for you, it's really hard to imagine
Mm.
doing something, making a living, right? Because eventually we do things also to get paid.
Mhm.
It's really hard to think about that.
Mm.
Is it even possible for me to make money doing something I enjoy?
I had to ask myself that question, and evidently it is.
And to be honest, it took me years to find
Me
my
too.
calling. It took me
Yeah.
years. It wasn't something that happened over a day. I think that if I had the right kind of coaches, I would probably
Mhm.
figure that out sooner. But I also, as you mentioned, I tried different things.
Yeah.
I tried investing in real estate. I tried selling on Amazon. I tried different things because I knew that I wanted, by the way, I will mention core values soon. I
Yeah.
knew that one of my core values was freedom. And I was looking for something that will give me the freedom that I wanted. And I looked at different areas
Yeah.
and I didn't find it there because real estate was something, okay, that's nice, but I don't love it.
Yeah.
And Amazon was like, and as soon as something that you have challenges, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to pay the price? Am I
Right.
willing to stick to it
Right.
until it happens? And the answer was no.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. It's just like for me, it's like, am I willing to do this drafting project and when I got a B on it instead of an A? Am I willing to redo it and turn it back in? That was a really low bar. And I said no. And they told me right then and there, I do not want to be an interior designer. But I knew I wanted to do something creative and I wanted to help people have joy and to build beauty into their lives. And so it just needed to keep searching.
Yeah.
But for, you and I both kind of went out on our own, but what about people who are not interested in leaving a career path as far as being on their own? If they're not interested in leaving an employer, are these the same things? And or are there other steps involved when they want to stay within a career path that has them receiving what we call a W-2?
I think it's still valid. There may be some limitations, especially if they want to stay with the same employer, but it's still valid to ask yourself those questions because, it applies also to being an employee. Like I did myself, right? I decided to go to leadership path. And the core values are another step that I feel is very important to ask yourself. And this is, for example, and I'll give the employee side of the fence. You need to make sure that what you're doing matches your core values and that the employer you work for matches your core values. For example, I worked, I knew that I'm preaching the choir because I took your mini course and I knew that, we think alike.
We think alike.
And I worked for how many people have you heard that they worked at a company that was acquired, and as soon as the company was acquired, they left? And why does it happen?
Mm-hmm.
Why it happened to me too? Because the acquiring company doesn't have the same core values.
Right.
So the place that they used to work and love, although even if they still work with the same people, right? Because many times change doesn't happen that fast, and they still work with the same group of people, but the company is different.
Yeah.
And many people leave because it's not the same core values.
Right. Oh, it's totally huge. And you're sitting there, you said one of your core values is freedom. I'm like, me too. And it doesn't have to be freedom from a job or a traditional working in a corporation or with an organization, a nonprofit. Freedom doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be self-employed. Freedom is your own definition. And I have found that even, and so really quick, why don't you tell us what you believe core value means?
Core value to me is something that is so important to you that you are willing to pay a price. Sometimes it's a very high price, not monetary necessarily, in order to keep it.
Yes.
So for me, I'll give an example because I like giving examples. Freedom is so important to me, and freedom to me means that I'm able to choose where I want, where I work, who I work with, when, how, everything, right? I don't want anyone to decide that to me, how many days off I have and so forth. And it's so important to me that I am on a daily basis saying no to very high paying jobs and willing to compromise on an income. And I made a lot of money as an employee. Sure. It's so important to me that I'm willing to give away benefits, security, stability, a lot of things. So this is a core value in my definition.
Oh, I like your definition. My definition is usually it's I call it a non-negotiable. And so it would fall into that same category of these are the things I'm willing to die for. And these are the things I am not willing to put up with you stomping all over them. And what's interesting is that we both have freedom in our top. My top three kind of rotate a little bit. They kind of move around. And freedom for the longest time literally meant for me getting out of corporate, freedom of my time and my space and all that. And that's important. But I've come to understand that freedom is even deeper than that for me. For me, freedom is you can't tell me what to think. You can't tell me what to say. You can't tell me how to process information. You can't tell me where to get my information. It's become so, and for the longest time, I thought it was my top value. And then I kind of switched it up to community and authenticity, but it has risen right back up to the top because as I learn more about myself, as I grow in understanding what my zone of genius is, freedom is so important that it goes that deep. As you say, it goes like down to my marrow. It goes all the way down. And so it's not just the physical freedom of being able to make my choices, working where I want to work, being with who I want to be with, interviewing who I want to interview. It has to do with how I think, what I believe in my heart, my belief system, my political, all of that. And so freedom has risen right back up to the top for me. It is back up at my top of my core values. So you mentioned the mini course that I give that to all of my clients. And I have been a little surprised at how many people do not know what their core values are. Do you find that is the case? Yeah. Do you find that is the case with your clients as well?
And I'll tell you something. I personally, and this is my personal preference, don't like to give people a list of values to choose from.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I feel like even if we have similar values, we may use a different word for it. Right. And for me, it's really important that someone will choose the right words for them. And what I tell them, people I work with, I tell them, okay, try to think about what is important for you. But there are other strategies. Think about, and this is something I learned at my coaching program. Think about 2 periods of life where it was very, very good period in your life. very good time in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and think about what did you have? What kind of values did you have there?
Mm.
And also think about a bad time in your life and what was there or was not there. And that
Mm.
also helps people realize kind of what is important for them. Another thing, another exercise is modeling, is thinking about role models in your
Oh,
life. It can
yes.
be people you know or people you don't know, right? Known figures or people in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and why they are role models for you. What
Mm.
values do they have? And this is another great strategy for people to realize what is important for them. For me, for example, we share, by the way, similar values. So freedom is one for me. Authenticity is
Yep.
another one for me that is very, very important for me. And transparency.
Mm.
And I noticed that people that I admire, and humility also is important to me too.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how successful you are, know your place. You have a lot to learn. That's
Always.
fine. And I noticed the people I admire, even people I don't know, have those core values.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that you mentioned it a minute ago, just like writing the things down that you don't like. That's one of the things I do. That's one of my tactics with my clients is like, okay, so look for the ways that things kind of just tick you off. What is it about it that kind of
Yeah.
ticks you off when that situation happens? Because that tells you that's kind of plucking on something. But being able to know, being able to see other people who either act in ways that you admire or have pursued their career in ways that you admire or have just achieved something that you admire. I think that's really smart because when we can see those models, it makes it more real to us.
Yes. And
Um,
yes, and you can also do the opposite. You can
oh
do
yeah,
people that really annoys you, people that you either hate or have very strong negative feelings for.
sure.
And also why? Asking
Yes.
yourself why. What kind of values do they have that contradict with yours?
Yeah, and you can see that even in specific situations, whether it's a whole personality or a whole trait. It's I can watch and see, all right, in this situation, I see why this person is closed off. They are not sharing themselves. They are not being authentic. They are not open. It's like, I can't do that. Right. It's
Yeah.
like I have to step away. It's like they got to wrestle with their own stuff. I'm gonna do mine. But I think that knowing who you are is probably the best way to know what your zone of genius is, isn't it?
Definitely. And there are a lot, you mentioned assessment. There are so many assessments out there via 16 personalities. I mean, there are endless
Yeah.
assessments. Many of them are free,
Hmm.
which is nice. But again, I like the authenticity, right, of a person naming for themselves who they are instead
Yeah.
of someone else telling them who they are based on a
Yeah.
list of questions. So I have a little bit of reservation with those assessments.
Yeah, I think they can be a good tool, but they're not the answer. And
Yeah.
even, I'm a disc consultant, so I use that with my clients, but all that's not personality type. That is communication and leadership, how you
Yeah.
behave, and then we dig down into why you do that. So, but at the same time, if you don't have any self-awareness at all before you do that, it's very easy to take that on as, oh, well, this is me. No. This is just where you plot it out. You are so
Yeah.
much bigger than those plots, And so for me, if somebody says, well, which one should I take? I'm like, take them all.
Yes,
Take
definitely.
them all because they all measure something different. They all look at you from a different angle. They will give you different ideas on how to proceed. So we have the understanding that we're going to be intentional. We know that we're going to look at our strengths and we're going to look at our values after we look at also what we like to do. Is there any other step?
So this is just the beginning. This
Oh
is
gosh.
just the foundation,
Okay. This will give us
because
a
that
good
will
start.
lead you to
Yeah.
figuring out what you actually want. And it sounds trivial, but so many people don't know what they want.
Mm,
So once you know your strength, your passions, your values, then you can build your career trajectory. Where do you want to be? And I really love using either vision board
yeah.
or just some kind of imagination exercise, to imagine yourself in the future. How do you look like? What do you do? Or look again at role models, like who do you want to become? Like what kind of people? Could be people in your workplace and so forth. And then build yourself a plan towards getting there. The plan has to be something, I like mini steps, not just planning for something too big.
Sure.
But once you know who you are, what is important for you, the core values help you figure out where you want to work, which kind of company, or which companies you don't want to work at, what kind of roles could be more than one, right? Once you know your strength, you can figure out which kind of roles you can do. And then really plan, how do you get there? Whether it's a job search or within your organization, getting either up in the ladder or sideways.
Well, and this goes back to the original part about being intentional. It's like, it's a little bit of a circle here, because I'm sure there's a little bit more that you would do as you keep going. You're probably doing these steps all these things each step of the way, because you have to reevaluate, because in each level you've gained new skills, you've discovered your strengths a little deeper. But I love this idea. This is the first year I did a vision board, and I did a little workshop, and it was fun doing it with other people, but it was really nice for me to say, I did more of a dream board. So it was the big things, but then I break everything down into the small steps, like weekly and monthly. And me, it's like, I got to make a plan. So as people kind of process all of this information and, look at potentially moving forward, especially for women in tech, what is the best place to find you? My understanding, I know I'm connected with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best. I have a website too, but usually I like to direct people to LinkedIn because they get a chance to know me a little bit. They can read my articles. They can see some videos I put. I didn't put as much as I should, but just to get to know me a little bit, because eventually and I tell that to any prospect client that I start working with, we have to connect first. You have to first decide if I'm the right person for you. Because I really believe in authenticity. As I said, that's one of my core values. And authenticity happens when there is trust and there is a match, when two people connect and create some level of connection. And if it doesn't happen, and it happened to me that I didn't create a connection, and I told them, are you sure you want to continue working with me? And there was a person that insisted in the end. After 2 or 3 sessions, they fired me eventually. This is okay. It's okay. Sometimes people feel uncomfortable, but it's okay. If there is no fit, there's no fit.
It's not a referendum. It's just, part of me would be like, I tried to tell you. You should listen to me. So we've got the LinkedIn, your profile up here, at least the link to your profile. And I'll make sure I put that in the YouTube notes so that we have it. Limor, I always love talking to you, and I look forward to future collaborations. And this has been really delightful. Is there anything we left out today?
Probably a ton, but I think that's enough information for one session.
So maybe we'll come back and do another.
Definitely. And I really enjoy talking with you, Andrea, as always.
Well, of course, you guys can check out her story on episode 106 of the Intentional Optimist Unconventional Leaders podcast. And until next time, have a great one.